Good afternoon, everybody. I want to talk to you a little bit, explain to you who I am through social identity. My social identity is that of Preston Smith. To elaborate on the social identity, a social identity is a means of identification. For example, you see the business card here. This would be a business social identity. From a psychological perspective, when we create an identity for an entity, it's just a captured piece of proof, kind of put together with a created situation. Now, that being understood, this is the very first of several lectures that I propose to do on behalf of what I believe to be the greatest and most powerful company on the planet Earth. It's called Anthropos Group. You can follow us or locate us on Google. We are a true company. It is owned by a black individual, and it is ran by the Anthropos Group. And so my portion in that is I am, as you can see, I am in black form. I am wearing black, not to signify death or mourning or anything related to something negative. Black is actually beautiful. When we talk about black, I want to actually talk about black from a true black perspective. Showing you this literature. This is in one of our books. You can find this book on our black-owned bookstore. If you log on to Google Anthropos Group, and click on the website, this book is there. This book is actually what we call the Book of the Gods and the Black Divine Beings. And yes, I did say that. I did mention black and divine in the same sentence. I know that through generations of writing and dissemination of materials, the masses of black culture have been not necessarily conditioned, but the views have been somewhat modified through social design. And so with that being said, the mission of the Anthropos Group is not only to publish works of the great black architect. Its mission is to create, for one, sell for two, and three, to give back 20% of all of the company's net earnings to poor black men right outside here in the streets of Dallas and ultimately across the world. You say, why do we do this? Why is it important, or why would a person do that? Now, I want to address that. It's important that we do this as a culture because it's on us to actually regraph that part of our culture that's been kind of left in a terrible place. Case in point, if you knew that you had something going on in your body that was causing the rest of your body, in a sense, to not operating what I call biochemical synergy, which is the title of another book that our great black architect designed in our partnership and the penmanship to bring it to fruition on this plane of reality or life, as we call it. However, but if you have an ailment or something in your body is not functioning properly, you want to get that obviously addressed so the body can function in balance. Or what I believe Walter Cannon, one of the European physiologists, said is a biochemical synergy. Now, something else about our company is we believe in giving credit to where credit is due. And so what that is that as I lecture, sometimes you hear me make reference to Europeans. There was a time when they did write from an honest perspective. However, as with any society, as your ability to write and proliferate or spread your knowledge grows, and you can begin to shape the culture through cultural colorations, through writing and literature, then obviously, it's easy to begin to distort views of, the people in which inhabit your society. It's called social programming in short. But nonetheless, we see a lot of black men or men in hued color. And I want to just kind of start with something right there. This is another one of our works. And you'll see in this work, this picture, it's obviously a divine being in huge skin. The significance of this is because we were first. Black was always in ancient times considered to be, royalty. The color of hue was a signature mark of originality. As you know, that in basic science, you can produce any other color that you want from black, but the reverse is not possible. In other words, I cannot take anything purely white and produce something and make it black. However, I can start out with pure black, and over time, through modification and processes, I can produce, another color. So with that being said, as this shows clearly in another book, and I don't know if you can clearly read it, but I'm going to try to get it as close to the camera as I can. It says that I am Cam, and I am black. In our ancient heritage as hued people, and what that is human beings in-housed in a hued shell that we call color. And that color is black, or brown red, or brown, or whatever the slope may be, whether it be mulatto or any variation, of color is a root from us. And so, with that being said, the Anthropos group is about restoring not only the knowledge that's necessary to revitalize a spark of great ingenuity in how in the human principle operating in colored form that we call man, a human being, in order to aid the mind in this process of restoration. See, because your mind knows, as it seeks its pathway back to an orogenic state, or to a state of having an understanding of the knowledge of itself, in order to create the conditions outside of itself that it was designed to create. It knows that there's certain information that must be captured in order to activate certain cell links deep within inside the psyche, of the human principle, to bring about the fruition of the mission of self-fulfillment. Now, how do we do that? How do we get a hold of that man outside, that's destitute of his wisdom? He has lost his sense of directive self-preservation. And now what we see when we pass by that man that looks like us on the street is the byproduct, the end result of a disposed machine of thought that has been so genetically and psychologically engineered to be a dysfunctionative property that now it is on the very stage of extinction. And you say, how so? Because you must understand something, and this is to the black nation, to the Cushite people. See what I'm saying? To the original man and woman. To that deeper seed of mind that has always existed in you and through us and has permeated everything outside of us. That cosmic energy that we have always had that has operated through us, through melanin, and operated in this form. I'm speaking to those people. I'm not speaking to the collective group that would prefer to go with the tide of modern day ideologies. If you're comfortable with that, so be it. Speaking to those truth seekers, the ones that really want to understand the riddles and the enigmas, of ancient wisdom and knowledge. I'm talking to those that seek to be resurrected from a dead life. I'm speaking to those that desire in their heart of hearts, in their solar plexus, in their universe, to resurrect with that great Kemetic knowledge of millions of years, thousands, hundreds of years, long before all these other new civilizations evolved. We had already been. And because of how we are designed, when these civilizations pass, we will be. And so with that being said, let's talk a little bit about some works and Anthropos and things of that nature. Now, as I said, when I introduced myself through a social identity, that was necessary. Now, this is what we do. We publish books that actually show true information about us, because this is necessary, man. When you're dealing with a mass scale of people, to no fault of their own, that have been, I won't even use the word victim, but have been influenced by what I like to call children of the corn. See what I'm saying? To view themselves in a certain way through social design, social programming, media implantation. What you find is that a lot of times, if your mind is operating on systems and functions, which we talk about biochemical synergy, and principles, it's easy to implant something into that psyche, man, that's going to create that reality and that condition outside of you. Case in point, we are told from the biblical position that whatsoever man soweth, that shall he also reap. And we know that this is a sound principle, and because I actually support, although I don't always agree with how those principles are taught and shared to our culture, I actually am a supporter of a lot of the majority of the biblical views, with the exceptions of the distorted images, and the incorrect way that these images have been used to attach certain cultures to a divinity status, while as placing the black culture at a subservient or in a subordinate position. I do not agree with those views, because I happen to understand by the great black architect, by the wisdom which is right in the book of Proverbs, that long before these systems were activated or could even be birthed and brought into fruition, our culture had for thousands of years understood the ancient Kemetic knowledge. And so, although I can teach the Bible to you, I'm going to teach it from what I believe is the proper perspective. And so, but basically, to not get a drill, when we are told that whatsoever man soweth, that shall he also reap. That principle can only apply in external nature and in internal law of transformation. Now let me explain. If I go outside, I like to drink coffee. Although I'm a very wealthy man, I still will drink coffee. We actually write publications worldwide, and we actually write reviews all across the city of Dallas and across the world for different companies that we kind of go and eat at or whatever and just observe. So we have that power of agency too. But with that being said, so for example, if I go plant a coffee bean outside, the only logical thing, and this is for what I believe would be a person, as Europeans would say, within their right minds, the only logical thing that person should expect to come up would be what you planted in the soil. So basically, whatsoever man soweth in the soil, that shall he also reap, right? Well, we know that's a natural law. That's a natural principle. It's been that way for millions of years. It was there before, we started using the law. The law was already there in existence. We when we got a hold of it and got knowledge of it, we began to exercise the principle, right? Well, if that's the external law, wouldn't it make sense that an internal law would coincide with that in order for it to be harmony? Wouldn't it make sense that whatsoever a man soweth in his heart or in his mind, that shall he also reap it outside of himself? Wouldn't it make sense that would be the external condition that he would create, he or she would create based on what you sown in your mind? See? So when we deal with the the philosophical institutions that we call churches, what we find is that in the public teachings, you taught the external natural side of it, but most people are not dealing with the other side of it, which is the internal side. So basically, if the law of sowing and reaping applies in nature, which is affiliated with the law of creation, it cannot be altered by time. Or perhaps, and I know a lot of you go, oh, wait a minute, don't say that. And because it's set up by divine providence, will not be altered by God. Then wouldn't it make sense that if you begin to apply that principle to the other side of yourself, the subjective side? So here's how we believe it's working. And we believe we can substantiate this from multiple perspectives, whether it be from the Bible. And the reason we emphasize that is because it is a book of principle. It is a book of truth. Yeah, I did say it. I know a lot of people were like, he said that? Yes, I said it. However, the way that the principles have been used and disseminated and taught to the masses has not always been taught, in my opinion, teaching the subjective truths behind those ancient biblical mysteries. See? Because you got to think about something. If the mind is set up to create, and obviously we know it is because we see that activity in Genesis. Genesis, the book of beginnings, right? Something was void, it was shaped, it was organized, and then it was expressed, it became a creative act, it was governed by a word, and the word was passed on, and we have a history of it. So we only need to get into a deep discussion about that, because I think we'll all agree on that principle. However, if the mind, follow me on this, could be considered as the Garden of Eden. See, and if one fruit, according to biblical legend, partook by the seed associated with the seed of the man, altered humanity, wouldn't that have been a psychological situation as well as spiritual? Because you have to realize something. Creative events are past events, metaphysically speaking, once the thought has already created the event. You got to realize some thoughts operate on a plane, perhaps where there is no time. Now, I do believe that we as spiritual and divine beings have the ability to be aware of time and to understand that biologically we are subjective to it. But I believe that spiritual power has the ability to be overthought. And I believe that because thought is a primitive principle, see what I'm saying, that it may not necessarily be subject to time. So basically, if I'm sowing seeds in what is a garden, it's timeless. See what I'm saying? What I need to be doing is understanding the reaping and sowing principle and how to properly put the seeds in the garden of my mind to bring about the fruit outside of myself that I desire. And I believe that this is where what we do is so instrumental, because we are actually teaching people to explore that great resource of data, that unlimited plane within yourself. For example, close your eyes for a minute, and what do you see? You see yourself. You don't see any white in there. Not saying white doesn't come from dark. And not saying anything in general about white or black. For those audiences that'll tune in, that's obviously not, looking like me. And we welcome that. We welcome anyone that would like to bring information to the table, that would like to sit down and talk about it. Any pastors, any of those elite, those philosophical gurus, we know beyond measure that we can substantiate every claim. We have information that's off the charts. So not only can we debate modern day history, we can debate ancient history. And if you want to go beyond the cosmos, we can go there too. So what is necessary in the reformation of thought ideology? and the recultivation or the reteaching. As Paul says, you have to renew your mind. See what I'm saying? In order to do that, you have to understand that when you close your eyes in that great darkness, where most of you are so uncomfortable at, where I find myself at home at, and I'm sure those ancient sages, even Jesus, because we know that he would often what? Leave. The Bible says he would leave and go pray. And we know that that was a habit that he had established, because we can track that habit through the written literature of the Bible. But I believe even more important than praying, this was a mind. I did say mind. I didn't say M-A-N, but I will associate M-A-N with mind. See what I'm saying? Did learn because he knew from the doctrine of the Father. Just like David knew from the doctrine of the Father. Just like Solomon knew from what? The doctrine of the Father. Guess what? And there are men in the Bible that predate them. Ham, Cush, Mizraim, Canaan. All those ancient Cushite men that operated in this black form that you see. Oh yeah. That predated all of the modern day Indo-Europeans and the Asiatic, the Babylonians and all of that. You know what I mean? Those men were operating on that subjective principle. And they understood something that has been not necessarily lost to the black masses, but not necessarily taught in a way where it can captivate the interest of the soul to receive the data that's very much needed and necessary to reignite his greatness. See, because you got to understand something. The mass society of people in the black nation in America have been conditioned actually to have a subservient position. And if you think I'm lying about it, I would ask any one of you, just drive down Maple Avenue, right out here in Dallas. Not even the richest part of the city, but mostly millionaires live over there. Now, most black men won't go over there. You know why? Because psychologically, they have been induced to think that they have no place in those places. Foolishly so, by clever new age invention. See what I'm saying? Oh, it's so deceptive. You know, Paul said that he had delivered a man to Satan and that he knew the devices of the devil. Now, if he was talking about something spiritual, he would have had to strip form and deliver whoever he delivered and then put his form back on, you know what I mean, and go about his business. So we know he wasn't talking about that. He was talking about a modern day agent that he knew was the devil. In fact, Paul talked about the term barbarian. And in upcoming lectures, I'm going to get into that. And we're gonna go, I want you to, this is not mine to say. I acknowledge one of I believe it's Minister Farrakhan, and that great lineage of teachers that have come under their teachings out in Chicago and worldwide, because they've been populating true knowledge to the black man here in America, you know, for as long as I've been here. And there are other great scientific minds and other great innovative thinkers, and I just want to reach out to all of those. May not know your names, but I just want to say thank you for your contributions. Without you, men like me wouldn't have the footsteps to be able to follow as a blueprint toward my own destiny. So I want to acknowledge that and make that public. But anyway, to get back to it. Whatsoever man sow, that shall he also reap. So if I set up everything for you to sow into yourself, I can also control everything that you reap. You say, how so? Well, I mean, if I set up a TV program that you like, after I've already done the statistics on you to know what you like, and then I design little bitty hidden things in it that interact with your psychological man. See what I'm saying? The one that you ain't paying attention to while you sitting up there tuning to the TV. You know what I mean? And all that's filtering through you electronically. Hello, you are a cell. Cells process energy. TVs process energy. They can interact with each other. You know, and there you are, man. Over time, I made you what I want you to be. So if I want to reduce your self-image of you, all I gotta do is create books like this. Let's just be honest, man. we're going to take a look at it, because, see, that's what we do. That's what we do. You've seen these images. It ain't no mystery. Well, actually, it is a mystery. You know what I mean? But it's one that's going to be revealed, or actually already revealed. I mean, come on. You haven't? And I'm not knocking the image. Quite handsome mankind there. So there's no offense against him, but the thing of it is that, you know, what people don't understand about us and our culture is that, you know, hey man, let's get off of it. Let's look at some truth, man. Let's look at some true images of some Cushite people, of some people of our lineage, of some people of our heritage, so we can show our kids and our grandkids the contribution that our civilization made and does make and has made for thousands of hundreds of years, man. Ain't nothing new. Here's another book. This is not my work. This is one that I read, and I suggest that you go get this copy. This man here is brilliant, and his work is pioneering. You know what I mean? Just to talk about a few things. But with that being said, let's just get back to it. If you are sowing a particular crop, for example, of negativity in your mind, then you shouldn't be surprised that at some point or another that's going to show up and become a condition outside of yourself. As I said, I like to give credit to those whom it's due, because as a published author, not taking credit for anything, giving all of the credit for one book to wisdom, for the other books to the great black architect. I've just been in penmanship, you know, as just a vessel for this here to come to fruition through, and so that's pretty much my position. But basically, you know, if you're putting thoughts in your mind all the time is negative, then because of how you created, you're sending those requests to your greater self. And the greater self exists on a creative plane. So it's kind of like if I'm sending the negative thoughts and I'm always putting that negative information over there, then what happens is that my older self, or in Greek philosophy, the subconscious or the solar plexus, which is connected to the universal mind. You know what I mean? In our terminology, you know, I call it the older selves, you know, the great architect. But nonetheless, it's been there forever, and it is. And it's a creative agent. So when you're sending it requests through thought transfer, people of color, this is how you created your condition. That's how that black man out there on the corner more than likely got there. Am I saying he didn't help? Of course he did. If he's done drugs and not held a job and not done the basic things that he should have done, of course he's helped himself to be there. But we have to look at the larger picture. We have become a culture, and this is not a condemnation upon us. This is just a truthful statement. And I'll say this, but I want to say this first, because this will appeal to the minds of people that need it. I have 2 degrees in psychology, and I have a master's in business. I have several books that I've been a part of getting published, and I've been appointed to own and run the world's most powerful publishing company, and have multiple holdings. So I'm not trying to be like Paul by identifying the credentials, but I just think it's necessary that people understand that when I'm speaking, I'm speaking from a very sound position, and from years of training and knowledge. And so, you know, I'm not declaring I'm a guru or anything of that nature. I'm a specialist. I'm an information specialist, and that's one of the things I do is I handle the mysteries. Yeah. I handle the mysteries, divine mysteries. So I teach them. Now, back to the black man. Where did he learn about crack? I don't think that black people was the first ones to start introducing that over here in America. We could have been, maybe close in there, but a lot of us at that time of the drug culture didn't have the resources to bring it here. But it was introduced to who? You. So that's like the first social sub-implantation. Launched against a species to further degrade it, to further keep it from a knowledge of itself. See? So you have that. Now that's a physical principle operating against a biological principle. And you also have the psychological principles being operated on through television, radio, media. See, you have a constant bombardment of information that your brain is processing all the time. And it's filtering out what it should allow to go to the other side and what it shouldn't. And oftentimes what happens to us is that because we are not self-aware, we've been taught so much about the hustle and bustle of life. I got to get my paper. I got to make it. I'm trying to get there. But you fail to realize that wealth is created. You ain't never going to get wealthy working on nobody's job unless you're in a position where you're making so much money, where the money that you're making from the job, you can explore it and allow creative black innovation, which operates through all of us. Keep in mind, it's a universal principle. You just have to learn to tap it. And if you follow us long enough, we're going to teach you how it's done. Because it's imperative that the black nation resurrect itself to a higher form of consciousness, man. Just beyond the basic principles that it's been introduced to in European society. These ain't nothing but type overs and reprints, and redistributions of ancient knowledge that we always had. I remember reading a book that tells the story of a European that thought he was going to go, I think perhaps he was Portuguese, that thought he was going to go to Africa and introduce Christianity to these people in order to reform the savage. I think this was either prior, right, or during slavery or somewhere, I'm not necessarily sure. But one of the things that the African guy told him is that the teaching is good, but it's not new. In other words, he was telling that guy that some of the things that he was trying to say had come from his God, the European God. The African man had already told him that these teachings, we'd already known these teachings for thousands of years, man. But the thing of it is that if something starts out in one region of the world and it migrates through transformation across different countries and over generations of time, it can be, the images can be changed. And you say, why does that matter? It don't matter if the Bible is true, or yeah, okay. But here's the thing: if your son or daughter is always growing up thinking that his God is white, isn't that an association with white being supreme? On the subconscious level, that's caused that child to have a subservient mindset toward white culture, to have a secondary psychic position toward white culture. By social design, social programming, man. This is not acceptable. Black people, this is not acceptable. And it's on us to right the wrongs that have been written against us. The Bible says, Paul says that he wouldn't accept any knowledge. Now I'm paraphrasing, that would exalt itself against the mind of Christ. Let me show you something, man. Because see, I know what I believe they'll tell you that seeing is believing. As a matter of fact, I had somebody tell me that the other day, and I found it to be extraordinary that person had told me that. But I want to find some information to prove what I'm saying to you, man, because some of this stuff don't even mean what you've been taught to believe it mean. And because folks, it's just not, I don't want to say it's not that they don't care, but it's just that they don't take the time to go do the research, and maybe it's because they don't have time, but we do it. Now, I'm going to read something to you. Now, this is not my work. I always believe it's necessary that you give credit where credit is due. This work is brilliant. It was written by this brilliant man. And obviously, you can see it's a black man. You know what I mean? With a brilliant mind. I'm explaining some things far better than he's just put it together. So he's talking about Egyptian cosmogony. And he's going to say, as summarized here, is the one attested to the text of the pyramids now, 26,000 BC. So we may stick to sure facts, meaning to the epic. Think about this. When the Greeks didn't exist in history yet, and when the Chinese and the Hindu populations were meaningless, man, that means basically they were the Greeks didn't exist yet. So that was an event that wasn't even there yet. And when the Chinese, which most will consider them through Buddha and those cultures as more ancient than us, it tells you right here that when their philosophies, they were meaningless. They were less than first drafts from a written perspective. They had meaning, but they had not developed to a full scale of having meaningness on the social plane. Here it is. And this is the stance for our people, man. This is the stance for the nation of those that desire to tap into the original essence of truth. Something greater than just the illusion or the revealed principle. See? So, let's get back to it. The summary below condenses the essentials of these four doctrines, but it is rigorously faithful to the Egyptian text. It is not a tendentious interpretation. Now, according to these systems, the universe was not created ex nihilo on a given day. I did say that. But there always existed what? Uncreated matter. Now, I do believe that I would be right in saying that Genesis would actually support this position, because it tells us that the earth was void and it was without form, but it never tells us that it wasn't there. So it was already there. See? So I believe that we can associate that with the uncreated matter. Now, without a beginning or an end, the aprion, without a limit and without determination. So, primitive matter, I'm going to skip a little bit, also contains the law of transformation. Now, you heard about the law of attraction. And, obviously we know this works. The Bible even talks about it under different titlements. For example, I think it is written that, therefore, whosoever shall say, therefore, which things soever you desire when you pray, believe that you receive them and you shall have them. Those things happen not so much because you are believing in an objective religion or a savior, for example, or a body of scriptural principles. Not saying that those things are bad, but the creative transformation of what one holds in heart until what one is manifest outside of him or herself actually evolves from what we have discovered and know to be a truer witness from just that transformation. Primitive matter also contains the law of transformation, the principle of the evolution of matter through time, equally considered as divinity. So I'm going to just kind of end on that. I'm going to encourage you guys to go get this book. This is Sheikh Anna Diop, Civilization or Barbarianism, 1981, excerpt, chapter 17, excerpt. Does an African philosophy exist? Yes. Yes. Why is it important to present this information to you publicly? It's important for several reasons. Obviously, not to sit up here and, not that I would, but, you don't want to look like an idiot, which I wouldn't. But secondly, because the cause of resurrecting the mental position of our culture is it's not a principle or even a movement founded by me. I'm just a modern day man that understands his heritage, and I embrace my blackness. When I look in the mirror at that colored, hued skin, I see originality. I see a divine entity that has long existed. When the primitive children that now populate, and despondently so, have ruled our forefathers through slavery, as well as our younger seeds, as well as most of you, through modern day invention. You know, most people look at black as something of a lesser principle, but they fail to realize that it's from us that life spawned. Nature attests to it. Science attests to it. The Bible attests to it. And the law of creation attests to it. How so? Because when I close my eyes, in the abyss of matter, there I stand, Anthropos. And when I open my eyes and I sense the external environment through the light of my mind, there I am, Anthropos, that which is and will be and can never cease to be. And it clothed itself in this plane in that huge skin that modern day people call the black man. In ancient times, the Negro or the Cushite. In biblical times, Ham or Cana. Did you not know that it was the land of Canaan that was promised to the Jews, that they coveted? And eventually, I believe, according to the Bible legend, it did take over, not all but some. So, you know, this, excuse me for 1 minute. Gonna end that there.